We'll call council to order at 6 p.m. First up, I need a motion for the adoption of the minutes.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on July 8th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening, but we have some public hearings. So we'll open the public hearing for conditional use PC 48-19, and this is for Kitka Kamath and Shailesh Senuv. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Welcome. Could you state your name for the records, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Ketki Kamath.
Thank you.
And that is my husband, Shailesh Senuv.
Thank you.
Good evening to one and all present here. I was a part of the Skills Up family childcare program organized by PCRC and completed it successfully. I believe that children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. That's exactly what I'm here for today. I'm aware that this town is in need of daycare spaces, and there are so many families out there waiting for a spot in existing daycares. I want to open up my house to these beautiful bright souls, that is our future, in a legitimate and licensed home daycare. I'm trying my best to cross all the barriers and hurdles that I come across, and with all your support and blessings, I can fulfill my dream of serving the community and be the best possible guide and caregiver to the children of Portage la Prairie. Thanking you for being patient and listening to me. Keep shining and have a very good day.
Thank you. Did any members of the council have any questions?
I'd just like to say congratulations on completing the program, and not only that, but carrying on and starting something new.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Any further questions from council? Okay. Need a motion to close the hearing? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Be it resolved that the public hearing for conditional use PC 4819 for Ketki Kamath and Shailesh Senuv at 739 Crescent Road East now be closed, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Okay. The issue, Council, that we have before us, of course, is to allow home daycare. That's in a R3 multifamily zone. So, of course, our alternatives, as usual, is to approve the conditional use application as presented, to approve the conditional use application with conditions, or, of course, to deny the conditional use application. As you heard from our delegate there, that Shailesh Senuv and Ketki Kamath have applied for a conditional use to allow for a home daycare, once again in an R3 multiple family zone. As you may be aware, in the past, there's been similar conditional use requests for home daycares that have been approved in the past. Those are there for your reference. They, at the time, were both located in an R1, or a residential single-family zone. The applicant does reside in a single-family dwelling that is located in that R3 residential multifamily zone. The application was circulated to the various departments with no concerns and no objections, and the public notices have all been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. So the recommendation of our committee, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Shailesh Senuv and Ketki Kamath to allow home daycare in an R3 multiple family zone at the property 739 Crescent Road East, which is legally described as Lot 8, Plan 29-323 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Draycott?
I would comment that given the location of this, I could see some very good value in it. Of course, there's value in opening daycares in our community all around, but given the proximity it has to the school, I could see how this could become a very desirable daycare to be in. So I would very much support having another daycare open up in our community as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open up the public hearing for variation order PC 49-19. This is for CHB Developments, Inc.
Your worship, if I may, must declare an interest in this particular item and ask to be recused.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Espy. Is there anyone here to speak for or against the variation order for PC 49-19? Final time, anyone here to speak to the public hearing for variation order PC 49-19? Okay, need a motion to close the hearing?
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I move that the public hearing for variation order PC 49-19, CHB Developments, Inc. at 394th Avenue Northeast now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, the issue that we have, of course, in front of us is to the request to vary the following as per subdivision 4550-19-7826. Units A, B, C, H, J, K, L, M, and N, site area requirement of 836.1 meters to be reduced to 574 meters. I'll finish reading them for the record. Units D and G, site area requirement of 836.1 meters to be reduced to 497 meters. You will have the sketch in front of you that will designate that. Units E and F, site area requirement of 836.1 meters, once again to be reduced to 515 meters. In addition, units A, B, C, H, J, K, L, M, and N, site width requirement of 22.9 meters to be reduced to 18.634 meters. Units D and G, site width requirement of 22.9 meters to be reduced to 22.4 meters. And lastly, units E and F, site width requirement of 22.9 to be reduced to 16.4 meters. As usual, our alternatives are to approve the variation application or to deny the variation application. Some of the background real quick, CHB Developments, Inc. is applying for a variation order to vary the following subdivision, which we just discussed. The building is in an R3 residential multifamily zone. The application had been circulated to various city departments with no objections. Public notices have also been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius, once again with no objections. With that said, and it's the recommendation of this committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of CHB Developments, Inc. to vary the following as per subdivision 4550-19-7826. Units A, B, C, H, J, K, L, M, and N, site area requirement of 836.1 meters to be reduced to 574 meters. Units D and G, site area requirement of 836.1 meters to be reduced to 497 meters. Units E and F, site area requirement of 836.1 meters to be reduced to 515 meters. Units A, B, C, H, J, K, L, M, and N, site width requirement of 22.9 meters to be reduced to 18.634 meters. Units D and G, site width requirement of 22.9 meters to be reduced to 22.4 meters. And lastly, units E and F, site width requirement of 22.9 meters to be reduced to 16.4 meters of the property known as 390 4th Avenue Northeast, which is legally described as lots A, B, C, D, E, and F, Plan 57474, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
For the record, I now feel like I know the alphabet inside and out.
That was very good, actually.
Thank you. I'm missing a couple of letters.
We'll open the public hearing for variation order PC 50-19. This is for Andrew and Angela Bouchard at 50 Alexander Avenue Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing, for or against? And final time, anyone here to speak to the public hearing for variation order PC 50-19? Okay, need a motion to close the hearing?
Be it resolved that the public hearing for variation order PC 50-19 for Andre and Angela Bouchard, 50 Alexander Avenue, now be closed. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, once again in front of you, you'll see the sketch for the variation order request. The issue, of course, is to vary the following as per subdivision 4550-18-7731. Lot width requirement for proposed Lot 3, as you can see on the sketch, from 18.3 meters to be reduced to 15.24 meters. And lot width requirement for proposed Lot 2 from 18.3 meters to be reduced to 18.288 meters. Once again, our alternatives are to approve the application or, of course, to deny the application. The background, Andre and Angela Bouchard, of course, are applying for a variation order to vary the following as per subdivision, as what I previously just read. The building is in an R160 residential single-family zone. The application has been circulated to various city departments. There have been no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners with a 100-meter radius, and there's been no objections. With that said, it's the recommendation of this committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Andre and Angela Bouchard to vary the following as per subdivision 4550-18-7731. Lot width requirement for proposed Lot 3 from 18.3 meters to be reduced to 15.24 meters. And lot width requirement for proposed Lot 2 from 18.3 meters to be reduced to 18.288 meters. At the property known as 50 Alexander Avenue, which is legally described as Lot 1, Block 2, Plan 2079 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Okay, motion's moved by Councillor Meyer. Seconder, please. Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. That concludes our public hearing, so we'll move into committees. First up is Finance Legislative Property Committee. Tonight for Councillor Budds is Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item up here is the issue is to enter into an easement agreement with Simplot Canada Limited to allow for the installation of a buried pipeline on city property. Simplot Canada has requested access to and across city property as described on Plan 1115, which is located southwest of the city between the Trans-Canada Highway and the Assiniboine River in the RM of Portage la Prairie for the installation and maintenance of a buried treated wastewater pipeline, which will discharge into the Assiniboine River as shown on the attached sketch. Simplot Canada has made a request to the city to enter into an easement agreement for this purpose. Construction of the treated wastewater pipeline and outfall structure is expected to begin in September of 2019. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie authorize the Mayor and Manager of Administration to sign an easement agreement with Simplot Canada Limited for the installation and ongoing maintenance of a buried pipeline on city property as described on Plan 1115 PLTO. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Now, the next issue is bylaw 19-8695, which is the borrowing bylaw. Bylaw 19-8695 was approved by the Municipal Board Order E-19-091 on July 25th, 2019. Final city approval of this bylaw is now required. Analysis of bylaw 19-8695, request for 2020 borrowing authority for the Crescent Lake Causeway project was provided with first reading on June 10th, 2019. The Municipal Board approved the city's borrowing authority request on July 25th, 2019. Copy of Board Order number E-19-091 is provided. Amendments stipulated have been made. First reading and approval by the City of Portage la Prairie City Council and of the bylaw occurred on June 10th, 2019. It is the recommendation that bylaw number 19-8695, being a bylaw of the City of Portage la Prairie, to authorize the borrowing of up to $3.3 million for the completion of the Crescent Lake Causeway project, be given second reading, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that bylaw number 19-8695 be given third and final reading, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Wall. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that concludes my report for Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Espy. We'll move into City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has no report.
And thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. For this evening, we do have Community Services, the second quarter report for PCRC, which we did review at our last committee meeting, unless there were any questions for Ms. Espy this evening. And that is all I have this evening for Community Services.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall, please.
Yes, Your Worship, there's a report for information only on lead in drinking water. I did go through the entire report on that at committee at the last meeting. So unless there are any questions, it's there for your information.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
And the Public Safety Committee, Councillor Wall.
Public Safety has nothing to report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. There is one item related to public safety. I should mention we had a meeting with the Justice Minister Thursday afternoon, and one of the asks we had was for some funding for coordinator of the HUB program, directed towards PCRC, and we received confirmation of that funding on Friday. Could you talk about that a little bit, Mr. Gill?
Thank you, Your Worship. Perhaps if I could ask Ms. Espy to speak to that if she is comfortable at this point.
Oh, okay. Well, I could say prior to the government blackout, we received a letter from the province confirming that there would be funding available for the HUB coordinator. That should be safe to say that, right, publicly? Well, too late, I've already said it, so, okay. Okay, thank you, and that's all I'll add to that. Okay, we're finished with committees. We have no deferred business, but we have some new business. First up is first reading for bylaw 19-8700. And this is for 2007 to 2008 unused borrowing authority. This is Finance Committee. Councillor Espy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a housekeeping item. It's to cancel the remain authorized borrowing authority for a 2007-08 road construction project. In 2007-08, the City of Portage la Prairie requested $600,000 in borrowing authority in order to fund the reconstruction of an intersection at PR 240 and Crescent Road East. Municipal Board Orders E07-152, E07-186, and E08-211 were issued in approval of this request. $455,000 in borrowing was required for the project's completion, leaving $145,000 remaining. This borrowing was paid by 2013. The province has requested the City Council unused borrowing authority for any completed projects. This is simply a housekeeping matter. It has no significant impact on the city's total borrowing capacity. It is the recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve cancellation of $145,000 in unused borrowing authority from its 2007-08 borrowing authority, Municipal Board Order E07-152, E07-186, and E08-211 by giving bylaw number 19-8700 first reading, and I so move.
Moved by Counselor Espy and seconded by Counselor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And Counselor Espy, the next item of new business is also finance.
Very similar item. In 2008 and 09, the City of Portage la Prairie requested $2,185,000 in borrowing authority in order to fund the design and construction of Wilkinson Crescent. Municipal Board Orders E08-063, E08-230, and E09-047 were issued in approval of this request. $1,993,000 in borrowing was required for the project's completion, leaving $192,000 remaining. This project's borrowing was paid by 2014. The province has requested the City Council unused borrowing authority for any completed projects. This is simply a housekeeping matter. It is a recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve cancellation of $192,000 in unused borrowing authority from its 2008-2009 borrowing authority, Municipal Board Order E08-063, E08-230, and E09-047 by giving bylaw number 19-8701 first reading, and I so move.
Moved by Counselor Espy and seconded by Counselor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And the next item of new business is also finance. Counselor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is appointment of auditors for the 2019 fiscal year. The Municipal Act, Section 184, requires the Council of all Manitoba municipalities to appoint auditors of their financial records, conduct appropriate activities to prepare an annual consolidated financial statement for the municipality. The city entered into a request for proposal process in 2015 for a 5-year contract for external audit services. As a result, MNP was awarded this contract for 2015 through 2019 fiscal years. The annual appointment will confirm MNP as the city's auditors for 2019. Administration will commence a new RFP process for a further 5-year contract in the fall of 2019. It is the recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve MNP as the auditors for the City of Portage la Prairie for the 2019 fiscal year, and I so move.
Moved by Counselor Espy and seconded by Counselor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And the final item of new business is also finance. Counselor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is to review and approve the 2019 Quarter 2 to June 30th 19 financial statements. The city's fiscal year is the calendar year, with quarters being March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, and December 31st year end. Administration provides detailed financial statements to the City Council on a quarterly basis. This process excludes Quarter 1, as the prior year's financial results are being finalized in this time frame, and the annual budget, including the year's financial plan, is not finalized until May. The city's finance department uses a team approach to meet and review individually with all directors, managers, and supervisors responsible for financial results in their own areas to determine any variances or significant budget gaps. On non-quarter months, July through November, the city's cumulative statement of financial position and statement of operation reports for the city's general and utility funds are provided on a summary basis for council approval. Variances. Variances exceeding plus or minus 60% use of total annual budget are identified. Those with an asterisk have lower variances when accounting for transfers done at year end for utility fund work because resources budgeted within the general fund. Now there is a list of variances here. Item 1, finance and property. Annual taxes due July 31st. Fire protection, and then there is a list of 1 to 11 items here with an explanation that council can peruse, and I'm sure it's up on the screen. Utility fund, statement of operations. There are no significant variances by percentage. There was over $8.7 million in government funding remaining to be expended for Phase 1, LRAR pretreatment system, project at the end of Q2. This project is expected to be completed in 2019. Reserve funds and trust account listing. No significant variances noted. Changes to account balances are reflective of budgeted or regular activity. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie approve the Q2 to June 30th, 2019 financial statements. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a question, Your Worship. Just in regards to the explanation for the over budget, I take it to believe, though, that that's not necessarily mean it's going to be over budget at the end of the year. It's just for the second quarter, and of course, where it talks about the 60%. I'm a little new to these statements. This is only the second one that I've looked at, but I take it that that's what that would mean.
I could take a shot at answering that question, but there's other experts around the table that, through the chair, I would defer to.
Thank you.
I'd ask Ms. McFarland to speak to it.
Well, this one I look at like higher.
So you're asking, are
Just-
the results reflective of the actual activity to the end of June, which would, of course, change by the end of the year?
It doesn't, more that it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be over budget by the end of the year. It just,
No.
the way I read this, if I'm correct in understanding it, is that we've used 60% of the budget in 50% of the year.
Yeah, for any of the variances that are reflected there, they're slightly ahead of the 50% that we would expect to spend in half the year. Although, some projects start later, so it's a way of keeping track of how close we are to budget and investigating any of the variances.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So we have no old business. So council is adjourned at 6:28 p.m. and we're going to move right into committee. Call committee to order at 6:28 p.m. And first up is Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Espy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have asked Councillor Wall to present the first item on this list, as I must declare a conflict and recuse myself from the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So the first item here is to consider the offer of Carpare Canada 1002858 Manitoba Limited to purchase the 45.6-acre parcel of city-owned land legally described as a portion of Parcel B, Plan 35396, roll number 341905, as highlighted on the attached map. The alternatives are to accept the offer, counter the offer, or to deny the offer to purchase. The background is that the administration issued the Southeast Development Phase 2 RFP concerning the sale of approximately 45.6-acre parcel of city-owned land for the purpose of developing residential land on August 23, 2018. The RFP required a minimum purchase price of $19,650 per acre to reflect the property's assessed value and the city's infrastructure investment. The RFP closed on October 5th, 2018, with no proposals received. In May 2019, Carpare Canada submitted a proposal to purchase the 45.6-acre parcel of land at the minimum purchase price and to work within the terms and conditions outlined in the RFP. They requested the council hold the land for 90 days, commencing June 5th, 2019, allowing them to develop a concept plan and timeline for review and consideration by council. Carpare will present this concept plan to council at the September 9th meeting. Carpare Canada has offered to purchase the 45.6-acre parcel legally described as Lot B, Plan 35396, for the sum of $896,040 for the purpose of developing residential land. And there's an attached sketch there. Any questions?
None at this point.
So that'll be coming up in September.
Okay.
Got off of the off the agenda altogether here. Hold on. I think the rest is for Mr. Espy anyway.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wall.
Shall I continue, Your Worship?
Yes, please, Councillor Espy.
2.2 is the 2007-2008 unused borrowing authority that we've already given first reading to tonight, coming back for second and third reading at the next council meeting. And 2.3 is the 2008-2009 unused borrowing authority, which we gave first reading to tonight and is coming back at the next council meeting for second and third reading. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Espy and Councillor Wall. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, it goes without saying that there's nothing gets me more excited than things going around this council table, things going, of course, around in Portage, and, of course, things that are going on in our region. So I'm always excited to bring up the permits that have been issued for the planning district, of course, which is the City of Portage la Prairie and the RM of Portage. Nothing makes me happier to read every time I see that we are completely exceeding our last year's totals. They do reflect, of course, the larger industrial component of our region right now, but for the record, and we can certainly discuss it next council meeting if anybody would like. But right now, combined between the city and the RM of Portage, we're just under $120 million in permits. Last year, we know was a record at $102 million. This year, we've already gone over it. So quickly for the record, I just want to say thanks a lot to, of course, Canelm and the Planning District, and, of course, to our administration and everybody involved. I mean, $120 million in permits involves an awful lot of work. So to them and to the investors in our city, thank you very much. Questions?
Any questions for Councillor Meyer? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship, and that's the end of my report.
Community Services Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening, we do have a few things going on for Community Services Committee. I would like to welcome Mitch Tilk, who is here as our new PLIP coordinator, and along with him is Jeff Palmer, who is here to give us a presentation for the Newcomer Ready study. I would like to welcome you gents up if you'd like to come to the mic.
Welcome, Jeff, and welcome, Mitch.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You just take that. Yeah, you take that. Never happened to me before.
You can tell me your secret later. Yay, we have success. So you should do it to him.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Mitch Tilk. I'm the new Portage la Prairie Local Immigration Partnership Program Coordinator. I would just like to take this opportunity to extend an invitation to everybody to shoot me an email or come by the office. I would love to discuss with all of you what we can do together to make Portage a more welcoming community. Thank you.
How's that? Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Jeff Palmer. I'm a planner with Urban Systems. At the time when I worked on this report, I was with Catapult Community Planning, and it was a time to stop working from my bedroom. So I was a sole proprietor, a partner, I should say, and a new company came to Manitoba, Urban Systems, and it's been a good experience so far. So worked out for everyone. So I've had a few projects in the last couple of years in Portage, and it's been a great experience meeting everyone. There's a number of familiar faces around the table. There might even be some familiar slides in the presentation, Mr. Brooks. So you've always encouraged me to recycle and reuse. So you might see a few things that there might have been a little bit of, you're always building on information from one presentation to the next. So I'm sure you won't mind if some of them get repeated. So I understand I have 45 minutes for the presentation. Just kidding. About 10 minutes. So I'm going to go through this very quickly, and I'll stick around for questions afterwards. 10 minutes is no problem. I'm a fast talker. I have to stop making that joke because somebody printed that in the newspaper once or I joked that I come from a family of auctioneers, which is not remotely true, but then they printed that in the newspaper, and my mom started to wonder where I really came from. So anyway. This was the one, right? There we go. Okay. So the project was working with the Portage Local Immigration Partnership, and it was a research project, which was quite interesting, and it built upon a lot of the work that I had done with Conelm on the development plan for the planning district. So it was quite interesting. So the purpose of the research, I'll go through that briefly. Maybe I'll put my back out if I keep leaning over. So the purpose of the research was. We looked at a brief history of Portage la Prairie, a brief description of the nature of Portage, and what can newcomers expect in terms of opportunities. And the big question is, how can Portage be more welcoming to newcomers? So the way we went through the research was we had a number of interviews, key informant interviews with members of the LIP, the group. There was about 14 in total. We had a focus group comprised of members of the Immigrant Advisory Table. So there was 8 there one evening. We gathered around pizza and staff as well. Conducted 3 other interviews with other LIPs across Canada and looking at literature review and other online resources. So briefly, what is a welcoming community? It's a place where there's a strong desire to receive newcomers and to create an environment where they'll feel at home. And there's basically 17 characteristics of a welcoming community. And this is not new. This is something that a number of communities have been looking at for many years. And it's Portage's turn. Employment opportunities, the most important factor, the reason why people come to Portage are employment opportunities. And that includes skill recognition. That's something that is quite important to most people that arrive. Fostering social capital is the second one. That's building the connections within and between individuals. So families, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Affordable, suitable housing is very important. An expression of positive attitudes toward newcomers is the fourth most important factor. The fifth is the availability of newcomer serving agencies in the community. And your agencies are very strong. And all the agencies are working very closely, working very well together to make sure that services are available. And they're anticipating that newcomers are coming. The next step that needs to happen is to make sure the population at large is tied into that and invested in the success of newcomers to make them feel welcome, make sure that they stay, and make sure that your economy grows. The seventh is making sure that municipal services reflect the needs of newcomers. Availability of educational opportunities. And I should mention that all these organizations that are around the LIP table, all the ones that are identified in these 17 factors are at your table. So everybody's there talking, having dialogue, and that's really important. That's the most important thing is that the LIP can do is to bring everyone together and make sure they function sort of as in a coordination basis. Healthcare, transit, diverse religious organizations, social engagement opportunities. The opportunity to participate in politics is very important. Having a positive relationship with the police and justice system. And of course, there's people from the RCMP at the LIP table. Safety. quite often we think that safety is one of the most important factors, but many times people are coming from communities that aren't as safe as Portage, and Portage is very safe when they arrive. So it's in the top 17, but not anywhere near the top. The opportunity to use public space and recreational facilities, and good coverage in the media. These are all important factors. So what the findings are, and these are findings that came from the conversations that we have. So you can agree with them, you can disagree with them, but it's what I heard, and sometimes it's almost hearsay. It's what people think or what they think they hear, but it's not necessarily factual. So these are the perceptions that need to be addressed, and perception can be reality to a certain extent. So these are things to be considering as we're moving forward. So one of the key findings is that Portage isn't used to change. And I'm from Winnipeg, 80 kilometers down the road. We're not used to change either, so I can certainly relate to that. And things have been changing very quickly in Winnipeg over the last 10 years, and you're going to be changing very quickly too as well. So bringing people up to speed is going to be a challenge. People want growth, but they don't want change necessarily, and you can't always have one without the other. The drive for growth is the drive to survive. People believe that they need to grow to survive, and that's the reality. In order to provide services and keep competitive with other communities, you need to grow, and you need to provide new services, and you need to increase your tax base. And not everybody wants to hear that. They wonder, why can't Portage stay the same? Why do things have to change? Well, things are always changing, whether you like it or not. If you're doing nothing, you're still changing. It's just going in the opposite direction. And there is a generational shift in attitudes around newcomers and a vision for Portage going forward. We had a number of good conversations with younger people in the community that I think had a very forward-looking, progressive vision for Portage. The second finding is that institutions are preparing to welcome more newcomers into the future. And we had a number of positive discussions around the table. And everybody I spoke to, all the 15 interviews and on, people were looking forward to the opportunities that newcomers would provide. Many residents continue to believe that employment and economic growth come from within, and that newcomers do not contribute to economic growth. And that's not the case. When we look at all the communities around us that are growing quickly, we know that it's due to immigration. And the trick is to make sure that people stay around in the long term, build a life for themselves in Portage. Newcomers are generally well educated and highly skilled, and residents need to be made aware of the positive impact of newcomers. And you need a strategy to make that happen. It doesn't just happen on its own. So community institutions are active in preparing for newcomers, but the community itself needs to catch up. That's what I heard over and over again, is that the people at the table know that immigration is happening and they know that change will be coming, but everybody else in the community needs to be brought along. So how do you do that is the big question. Good planning and a strong communication strategy is essential, and the goal is to get the community to buy into the vision for Portage going forward. One comment about the business community. There's a perception that the business community needs to be more involved with attracting newcomers and helping them integrate. Portage and other communities in Manitoba and in Canada often compare themselves to southern Manitoba, Winkler, Morden, Steinbach, because the growth in those communities is off the charts. It's tremendously high in the Manitoba context, it's high in the Canadian context. So it's not fair to compare yourself to these communities because nobody can. And there's some differences in the way their business communities function. There is a general sentiment that large corporate employers are isolated from the community. This is what I'm hearing. It's rightly or wrongly, you can debate it, but this is what we heard. Both large corporate institutions and locally owned small family businesses need to work together for the benefit of the community. So what we heard more often is that in some communities where the business community is driven more by smaller family businesses, they play more of a hands-on role in bringing newcomers over, making them comfortable in the community, providing supports, giving them opportunities, compared to larger corporate employers that don't have the same hands-on feel. Like the plant manager isn't going to invite people over for Christmas dinner, which might happen in Morden, because it's just the nature of the business. So that just means that the business community in Portage has to work a little bit harder to make those connections and because it's in their interest as well to make sure that employees don't turn over. And finally, a local immigration partnership can help coordinate activities. So LIPs were originally established in larger centers where service providers risked operating in silos. There's a smaller risk in Portage, smaller communities where there's more contact with everybody in the community, but the risk is still there. And it's important that service organizations work closely and are aware of each other's needs and issues, and that's where your LIP can help out. So I'll go through quickly a couple of slides because the data is always fun and open for debate because numbers are just interpretations of other people's numbers. So they're statistics, right? And there's a saying about that. Anyway, that's Kinelm's laughing because we had the same debate, I think, about a year ago. So I'm going to put myself through it again because I'm a sucker for punishment. This was based on Statistics Canada data from the last census, so the data came out was 2016. So I'm not sure if you have do you have the presentations in front of you? We're all looking at the same thing? Okay, so in terms of vacancy rates, one thing I will say about the data is that it may or may not be correct, but it should be consistent. So if Stats Can made a mistake in one community, they probably made it in all. So don't worry too much about the numbers, but look at the trends and see how you compare against other communities, and it gives you an idea. It's not the answer, but it gives you a sense of what might be happening in Portage and what might be happening in other communities. So vacancy rates in Manitoba are about 3%. Winnipeg is about the same. It's been fairly stable. Portage seems to fluctuate very rapidly, very dynamically, and it's actually quite a bit higher than the provincial average. And that, one disclaimer I'll say is that when you have a smaller sample size, the numbers can be skewed a little bit more. So that's probably one of the reasons why there might be some concern about those numbers. Brandon went from 1% to 3%. That's a difficult market when you have such variation in between there. Same with Steinbach, and then Thompson has exploded with quite high vacancy just in the last year for reasons that I really I'd have to look into, but there must be something economically happening in Thompson that is not positive right now. In terms of rents, rents have been consistently going up in Manitoba and in Winnipeg by a fairly good amount. Portage la Prairie, the rents are a little bit lower, but have been increasing, and Brandon is a little bit flatter. So the fact that rents are increasing in Portage means there is demand. People are coming into Portage, even if the numbers of units are staying the same and people are moving in, that will cause demand to go up and prices to go up, and hopefully the market will respond and start building some new units as well. Same with Steinbach, and Thompson is a little bit flatter, and Winkler actually. People often think that Winkler is growing as much as it is, but even here the average rents are more moderate. The percentage of low income for all families, Portage is quite high compared to the Manitoba average at the end. And it's been consistent. It's decreased a little bit and increased a bit, but that is something to recognize and appreciate that low income is an issue in Portage. Even other communities like Thompson that you might think might have more challenges, or Kenora or Brandon, it is significantly higher. It's 50% higher than in Brandon. Crime is also a little bit higher. The Manitoba average is down here at the end, about 10,000. This isn't weighted for severity of crime. This is just a raw number about the absolute number of incidents. And Thompson has historically had more criminal activity and fluctuates quite a bit. But Portage is a little bit higher, so although it's not high on the list of concerns for newcomers, it's something that needs to be addressed. The rates of change fluctuate very much, so some of these slides are more for my own personal interest as a nerdy planner than for public representation, I guess. Immigration as a percentage of population. So this is a neat slide. Winnipeg is fairly flat, about 2%. Neepawa, not too far, has exploded, about 8% in a couple of years there. And when you go to Neepawa, you notice it. You see a lot of new faces on the street, and that can become a challenge when trying to integrate populations that are changing so dynamically. So Neepawa, and I've heard nothing but good things happening in Neepawa. So it can be done. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's something you want to avoid, but just sort of be aware of it, I suppose. And Winkler had a couple of very big years there, and then it's tapered off quite a bit more. Now Portage, closer to the end, has been fairly stable, and the numbers aren't particularly great. So there should be no issue with making sure that you have the services available at this point in time for newcomers, but knowing that those numbers will be growing as well. Some of the context here, these numbers are for the planning district, Portage, the city of Portage and the RM. We group them together. Immigration in the past decade has been fairly stable, 250,000 per year, and immigration to Manitoba has gone up and down, around 15,000 in 2016. Most of the provincial nominees have come to Manitoba. Manitoba's been very successful in attracting provincial nominees. The prairies in general have been, but Manitoba in particular. And where do permanent residents come from? A good chunk come from the Philippines and India and China, but also other countries as well at the end is very significant. But the Philippines, India, and China have been the big three for the past 5 or 6 years. And where do they go? Most of them go to Winnipeg. North Central is the economic region that Portage falls into, and the numbers are a little bit lower. So these are skewed because so many people go to Winnipeg. But if you take Winnipeg out of the equation, Southwest Manitoba also gets a very large chunk. And then North Central, where Portage is, of course, is a little bit lower and more stable, but increasing as well. So the destination, Portage has, in 2008, about 52, up to 70 in 2011. 2015 was 95, and 2016 was 103. So it is definitely increasing. And this is a graph that shows where the destination of permanent residents when they're arriving in Manitoba outside of Winnipeg. So Brandon, Morden, Winkler, Nipawin, Steinbach, those are the kind of communities you associate with a higher immigration numbers. And then Portage has a little bit of room to grow. So how are we doing for time? There's a lot of slides there. I know you have them. You may have had a chance to look at them and might have some questions, or if you like, I can go through them quickly as well, but I know I'm not last on the agenda, so.
I think we've got the time.
Keep going, sure.
Yep,
Okay.
keep going.
No. Age, so this is important. The age of permanent residence to Manitoba is the overwhelmingly, people who are coming to Manitoba, immigrants, are between 25 and 39. And that's great because that's where the Portage bubble, your demographic pyramid, your population pyramid shows a slower growth in those areas. There's lots of younger people here and lots of older people, but the middle age group, the cohort is lower than the provincial average. So this is the perfect type of newcomer that you're trying to attract. The level of education, people who are coming to Manitoba and they're being recruited to come to Manitoba have an education and they have training. The bachelor's degree is overwhelmingly the most common type of a level of education that people have. The occupation, and to be honest, I can't even read this. I'm sure you can on your screen, so I'll skip through these, the occupations. And the mother tongue, Tagalog, am I pronouncing that correctly? I believe it's the language of the Philippines, and Punjabi, and Tigrinya. I knew that at one point, and now I forget. I think that's an Asian language, if I recall. But of course, we talked about the 3 most common groups being India, China, and the Philippines, and of course it's represented in their language as well. The official language is overwhelmingly English, some French, but mostly English. And then a little bit more information on that. The age at immigration, between 25 and 44 is generally the most common ages when people arrive. The period of immigration, and 2016 here is, so there was, sorry, I should clarify that the light blue is the city, the RM is the darker blue, and the total is the navy blue, to give you a sense of where people are going. And overwhelmingly, the immigration is happening in Portage, the city, not so much Portage, the RM. Citizenship. And recent immigrants to the planning district, to the city and the RM, by selected places of birth. India, overwhelmingly, the Philippines, and a little bit in Germany and the US from time to time as well. So this is the generation status. There's first, second, and third generation, and very few. So there's about, 1,200 or 1,300 are first generation within the RM. So that represents about 5% of your population. And most newcomers are the application, the admission category that they fall into is economic. So they're here for economic purposes, they're being recruited, or they're skilled labor. They're coming here to fill a job. The second biggest portion is sponsored by families, so that's the economic migrants who arrive here, and they bring over their family afterwards. And refugees is a very small proportion that falls afterwards. This is the study area. That's the study area that Census Canada, the Statistics Canada uses for their information. And here's a little bit of information just on population growth. So, back in 1991, there was just over 20,000 people in the planning district, in the city and the RM. Decreased slightly for a couple of years. It was fairly flat, and recently, by 2016, has come back to exceed what the population was in 1991. And just to compare it to some other communities, Portage, the city, is on the far left. Next to it is the RM. And those are both fairly flat growth rates, which is similar to what you'd find in Selkirk, RMs of Cornwallis outside of Brandon, and the RM of Grey. And then there's some communities that are growing a little bit faster. Niverville is exploding because it is a bedroom community of the city of Winnipeg, and it doesn't have a ton of economic development opportunities. That's something that they're working on, but their population is still growing. And then Hanover, of course, the population in Hanover, Richot, Taché, the southeast part of Manitoba as well is growing quite quickly. And same with Brandon, is recently starting to grow again after years of flat growth. And here's some numbers to put together with those that data. So Portage is up about 1%. The RM is down by about 3%, and this is from 1991 to 2016. Brandon's up by 27%, but there's a lot of communities like Cornwallis and Selkirk that are in the 5 to 7% range. And Niverville, Hanover, Richot, Taché, those are growing quite quickly, mostly because of their proximity to Winnipeg and their role as bedroom communities. So that's the final slide. I guess if there's a takeaway we can from this exercise is that the Portage, the institutions in Portage, the community associations are ahead of the curve here. Everybody is working very well together. They're working closely to recognize that that Portage is going to be changing, that in order to grow, you need to attract newcomers. And the key to keeping newcomers and to having growth over the long term is to making sure that they feel welcome. Now the key is to communicating this message to the public at large. A certain amount of them are still kind of maybe backwards looking, not looking to the future, and they wonder why growth can't happen from within. And that's not the reality. That's not the Canadian history. The Canadian history is that to grow, newcomers arrive, they stay, they prosper, they work, they bring over their family. And that's just the message, I think, that what I heard, that needs to be communicated. So you're well underway, but it's a long journey, I suppose. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, except about the vacancy rates.
Oh, okay. Did council have some questions for Jeff? Well, I had a couple, Jeff. Council may have some in a minute. So you did interviews. So was that interviews with newcomers or with the population in general?
There was a focus group with newcomers. There was 8 people around a table plus some staff, and we had a good conversation for a couple of hours talking about some of the ideas. A focus group is good because one person will say something and the next person will build off that idea. The interviews were done with the people on the committee, the LIP committee, so there was about 15 of those done. And then I also interviewed a number of LIPs in other communities, smaller Western Canadian communities, kind of comparable to Portage. Quite a few in Alberta actually were well established. So I didn't interview the public at large, just stakeholders, people who are familiar with the process, and newcomers as well in a focus group.
Okay, so this was stakeholders, not the public at large?
Not the public at large, no, newcomers and stakeholders.
Okay.
So when I say that there's perceptions about what the immigration challenges are, those are perceptions, because they're the perceptions of people who are sitting around the table. Because I didn't interview people at large. It was just beyond the scope of the research.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, well, that's certainly a lot of food for thought. I find it very interesting to take a look at this and see what direction our city should be going and is going in many cases. And Councilor Meyer?
Is it too late to ask a question? Sorry.
Not too late, no.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Palmer, first of all, congratulations. Obviously, it's intensive work and a lot of conversations. I guess where would the step from here go? What would be the next step with this report?
I think you need to develop a communication strategy. I think there's good things happening in Portage. Not everybody appreciates that there's good things happening in Portage. It might have been, there's still very much a perception that Portage is a sleepy community and that growth is kind of flat. But there's a lot of economic development that is happening here. There's going to be people moving in to take these jobs, and things are going to be changing. So how do you take advantage of that? All the stakeholders around the LIP table, internally, their organizations are working to accommodate this, but I think that's kind of happening behind the scenes, and people in Portage need to know that they're growing and that positive change is happening, and they need to be, that it's up to everybody in the community to put forward a welcoming community. In the top 5, I think it was talking about building those social connections. That's very important. The business community needs to step up. They need to sell the amenities of Portage. They need to take a more hands-on role of making sure that their employees are taken care of. There was people around the newcomer table when we had the focus group. They didn't understand. A couple of them were agricultural workers. They didn't know that healthcare was available to them. They didn't know about the educational opportunities. These are basic things that we would sort of take for granted, but their employer didn't mention it. They didn't learn about it coming here. They were really arriving with their eyes closed. So it's up to all of us to make sure that people appreciate that. And to a certain extent, it's about messaging and communications. It's not advertising, because you actually have the services and the support there behind it. So it's not just window dressing, but that's the next step, is to make sure that newcomers coming to Portage are aware of the situation, aware of the services, the resources, but making sure that people on the street are aware of it as well and supportive, and kind of breaking through that barrier that we can fill every job with somebody who lives in the community right now. That's just not the case. That immigration will grow your economy, and that these jobs will go unfilled if newcomers don't arrive to work in them.
Right. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Councilor Draycott.
Thank you. First, thank you for your presentation this evening. It was very comprehensive and a lot of information in there.
I went overboard a little
It's
bit.
okay. We appreciate information. There's actually a lot of things in that we hear murmurings of online, or when you're having conversations with people one-on-one about newcomers and why they're coming to Portage and how they're coming to Portage and what type of newcomers we're seeing. So a lot of those slides were very educational, that I could see as something that would be great for an internal communication strategy with our community, but also in terms of a communication strategy, I could see a lot of benefit for an external communication strategy, because we have all of these jobs coming and we don't have the people necessarily in our community right now. Could see visions of like an owner's manual. When you come to Portage, this is what the amenities are available to newcomers. So that was interesting as well, to have all of that information at hand. So thank you very much for coming out this evening, and we definitely appreciate your presentation.
Oh, thank you. I want to make one more comment too, because you're doing something right on your economic development front. I've done some work in Brandon too, a couple of years ago. Brandon was saying, why can't we be more like Portage? Why can't we attract the food processors that Portage is getting? The reality is that their industrial area, they've got tons of industrial land. It's all zoned and designated industrial. It's not serviced. They were trying to come up with a servicing strategy. All their land is privately owned. So when a developer comes to town, or when an industry comes to town and they need 500 acres, but that's 500 acres that it's broken up into 10 different parcels, they turn around, because they're not dealing with one landowner. And Brandon is leaving it to a market solution. And I understand philosophically why they're doing that, but that's not going to get them where they need to be at the end of the day. You have parcels of land that you have some control over, that you can control when you sell it, when you service it, how it's developed, that it's available. And that is appealing, as you found out, to a number of to larger corporations that are moving here. So I guess my advice is, well, first of all, good work. And secondly, don't get hung up on this discussion about what is the role of the municipality. Have that conversation. But if you leave it entirely to private developers, all it takes is one who's not interested or not reasonable, and the whole community suffers. And I think that's what they're seeing in Brandon. So that's one thing one way where you stood out, and where people in Brandon are saying, why can't we be more like Portage? So good work.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
The second item that I do have on my committee report this evening is the Heritage Committee, their second quarter report. They were actually successful in sustaining a grant for $8,000 from the province for the Wallace Mausoleum restoration, as well as they had a grant application for signage for the same Wallace Mausoleum. That application was completed, and lots of interaction with different stakeholders in the community. As well, we do have the Parks Committee report for the second quarter. The Parks Committee in the second quarter has actually been busy with fundraising towards Simplot Central Park. We successfully held the canteen/barbecue at Portage's Canada Day celebrations for the first time this year, and would like to thank the community, I think, for their coming to see us to get a burger and a hot dog that day. As well, the Parks Committee did run a window campaign across different businesses in Portage for the month of July, where you could purchase a Parks water fountain for $1, put your name on it, and display it in a window of a local business. So lots still happening there with the Parks Committee. And then finally, for my committee report this evening, it is our youth counselor's final committee and council meeting this evening. So I would like to say thank you very much for your hard work over the past year. But the youth counselor is not done, so I would like to invite her to tell us what she has going on still for the month of August.
Thank you, Counselor. So I would just like to start off by introducing my last event, which is the Senior Musical Jamboree, which will be held at the Douglas Camper Lodge on August 15th at 2 p.m. And this is a noble initiative for youth to come out and connect with our seniors through the power of music. So as this is my last event, I'm eagerly looking forward to see how it works out. I also want to add that this year just flew by. In 17 days, I'm leaving to go to university, and I'm leaving Portage with some very fond memories. But I cannot leave without saying thank you and expressing my sincerest gratitude to every single person at this table. Thank you. I have learned something from each and every one of you, and there are no words to express how thankful I am. It was an honor and a privilege to work and serve amongst such a distinguished and esteemed group of people like you. You guided me, nurtured me, and mentored me. You have all contributed to my goal of continuing to striving to become the best version of myself that I can be, and for that I want to thank you. I also want to express my sincerest gratitude to the community of Portage la Prairie for their continued support and encouragement. Thank you, Portage, for giving me some wonderful memories to leave with.
Well, this would be probably a very appropriate time to ask our youth counselor to come on up, and I'll ask Counselor Draycott to join us. So on behalf of the Council of Portage la Prairie, we'd like to present you with this token of our appreciation for your service during this past year. I think it's just safe to say that we've all learned a bit more too, and the months have flown by. So congratulations and good luck on the next part of the journey. You wanna step in between?
Sure. Oh, yes.
Could you pull the chair out? We can pull the chair out. Okay, looking here for a minute, guys. One more. Okay. Thank you. Now over here. Don't anybody stick their tongue out. Okay.
Thank you so much. Can I just do that?
that would conclude the Community Services Committee report this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Next up is Waterworks Committee. Councillor Wall, please.
Waterworks Committee has no report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Public Safety Committee, tonight, Councillor Wall.
Yes. I have the 2019 second quarter report from law enforcement. I've looked through it. There are some changes from one period to the next. If anyone has any questions, I think we probably defer to the Director of Public Safety.
Well, I have a comment, not a question. I saw the numbers on bylaw for occupancy, and I just want to thank administration and public safety and the bylaw officers for the numbers are up substantially, and there's a number of citizens have commented to me and other members of this council on the work that's being done on untidy, unsightly premises, getting things cleaned up, and I know it's much appreciated by the public that we work for. So, and I know there's been a lot of effort put into that in the last 3-4 months. So, much appreciated.
I have one question for Mr. Carpenter. The parking bylaw that restricts parking to 7 days on a public street, does that apply to Saskatchewan Avenue, which is provincial highway?
I believe it does, but again, Saskatchewan Avenue, as you know, there's meters on them, on most of Saskatchewan Avenue.
I'm talking mostly about Saskatchewan Avenue West beyond the meters and so on.
It should come into play there as well, yes.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wall. And just before we adjourn, I just want to invite members of the media and the public. Our Heritage Committee some members from our Heritage Committee are present this evening, and they're going to do a presentation in the hallway right after we adjourn. So I'd invite everybody to stay with us after the meeting's adjourned. And committee is adjourned at 7:13 p.m.